Um, I was looking at the velocity of change and longevity together, and I noticed something that if you look at how much longer we're living now versus how many change cycles we're going to go through, you will notice that if you were born back in 1750, you could have expected to live 37 years. So you had 2.5 generations to absorb the change of the steam engine. Now, you're going to have to absorb 3, 4, 5 paradigm shifts within a single generation. We're not prepared for that, and we're not talking enough about what that means and does to humans.
It looked like this: education, career, retire. You went to school in the first third of your life, got on the career ladder, you collected a pension, and by design you died a year later. You were successful there if they codified and transferred the right skills into you to get you your first job and get you off on that ladder. We still operate like this is true. It's a failed promise. Because now it looks more like this. Life expectancy is not 90, but it will be soon. Education becomes learning to me because learning's lifelong as opposed to an end state of being educated. Career becomes leverage of that learning because there's a relationship between the two of them. And retirement really becomes a reality of longevity. And we have to think differently about it. So it becomes engagements with some overlap, some learning, and the success measures here are learning, agility, adaptability, agency, fueled by purpose. We're not preparing people for this world, but this is the reality. So we ask these ridiculous questions. What do you want to be when you grow up? That is a ridiculous question. This number is probably wrong. Now I've heard it's a third. It doesn't matter. 57% of statistics are made up. A lot of the jobs don't exist yet, and those that do, half the work within them is going to be automated. So why limit somebody's potential by making them imagine a future self and then work towards it? We ask university students to pick a major before they even step on campus. Less than a third of them ever work in the field of their major, and that's looking backwards. Looking forwards, it's probably going to be 3%. And then what do you do? This question I have trouble answering myself. Research suggests that young people today will have 17, 18 different jobs across 5 different industries. So we're calcifying somebody's mindset and identity around an expression of skills and knowledge at a moment in time, and I think that's dangerous.
And collectively, I think of this thing like an iceberg. And at the top of the iceberg are those skills we just keep lunging at, and the iceberg's sinking because we're looking at it all wrong. Start at the bottom with identity. We need to build resilient and adaptive identities. We need to help people change. Coal miners are not going to become coders. You're right, they could become drone operators. It's closer to who they think they are. Mindset, we need to help people learn and adapt. Enablers are things we need to continually develop all the time. They're the things that make us better at our job. And then the skills to do are the top of the pyramid. Those are like downloading new applications on your phone. We're going to download and delete them all the time. But in order to do that, we need to build the underlying mechanism to do so.
I noticed that something else was going on. We're going through a massive cultural change. And so I started making a list, and this is a short list of some of it, and then I'll unpack it. So we're going from race, we're going from a white majority, I'm largely talking about the US here, to soon will be a white minority, at least in our lifetime. We're going from Christianity being the sort of dominant war on Christmas kind of conversations to more of the population being unaffiliated or a plurality of religions. From a regional standpoint, we're going from, although we've been predominantly living in cities, we have more of a rural mindset, to overwhelmingly living in urban cities. And we're going from about a third Republican, Democrat, and Independent to being highly polarized on either side, and tribes with most folks in the middle. We have like 43% independent right now. And then ages, we've been a sort of a youthful society, at least that's how advertisers portray us. The 18 to 44, the 18 to 54 demographic is the one you wanted to go after. Soon we're going to have more old people than we have young people in an aging society because we're having fewer children and people are living longer. And then family, which was mom, dad, and 2.5 kids, is now going to be a plurality of types, and there's an actual middle child extinction going on because now we're having fewer than 2 kids. Gender identity, that was, it's in the news right now because someone's trying to change it, but it was fixed and binary when I was born. It's now much more gender fluid for a lot of people. Consent. So it was sort of silently permissible to sexually harass someone. Now we've got Me Too and time's up. Occupation, we talked about this a little bit at the beginning, but it used to be your fixed employee identity. The first thing you say to someone is what you do or what company you work for. I think we're moving towards a portfolio of self-expression, but we're not giving the people the tools to talk about it. And then leadership, I stand in front of you today not because of any company I worked at, not because of any degree I have or any position I held, but I've been giving these talks now for a couple of years. It's gotten a lot of attention with people, And so I'm in front of you as some sort of expert, but I'm not credentialed as an expert in the way that we formally used to credential people. And then finally, we've had a society that was largely white male dominated in terms of the leadership position. We're seeing, and I think we'll see more of more diverse leaders and more female leaders. Certainly, I hope so. So these are some pretty big shifts within a single generation. And if you sort of I think it's important to understand what they value and why they're there, and what you value and why you're there, and how you do your jobs. And I'm very open, honest conversation about that. Sometimes you'll get a millennial, and I've heard this complaint repeatedly, they want to be a vice president next week. Good. You want them to be. Help them get there. You've got to keep them engaged and keep them fueled. Keep giving them projects that keep them engaged. But at the same time, I think also need to respect the path you've gone through and the world you grew up with and how you used to do things. You're learning and adapting to a world that's completely different than the one they were born into. So I think in all of this, whether it's the identity piece or the generations piece, we need to have empathy. We're all going through some sort of change, and some of it's really dramatic because we weren't born into this. And for other people, it's, why is it taking you so long? And then when it comes to the identity stuff, it's finally letting a whole group of people feel accepted, or another group of people feel like they're losing their country. So across the boards, I think we need to have empathy and more transparent conversations. So that's my advice in the multi-generational workforce.
What will we say to generations to come when we look back at this time period? What are we going to say?
And who'll be held accountable?
Yeah. Do you have a message?
Well, for parents, I have a quote in the book from my friend Heather McGowan, who talks about when things get really fast. And she says, in this age of acceleration, never ask your kid what you want to be when you grow up. Because whatever it is, unless it's policeman or fireman, probably not going to be here, okay? Jobs are going to change that quickly. Only ask your kid how you want to be when you grow up. Will you have an agile learning mindset? Will you be predisposed to lifelong learning? Because the days when you can get a 4-year degree and then expect to dine out on that for 30 years, that is over. What you learned in your first year of college now may be outdated by your 4th.